It is about time. Pretend it's 10 o'clock. Welcome and good morning. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come to the meeting number 527, Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, here in downtown Lake George Village at the Fort Wayne County Conference Center. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
We have a quorum. Thank you. How about we do approval of meeting minutes and fiscal action reports for June of 23 on each item separately. The meeting minutes. All have read them? Move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Fiscal actions report.
I moved.
Motion. Second. You had some discussion on it, but you were answered satisfactorily.
Excellent. Thank you for the explanations.
We're glad to know somebody's reading them. All in favor signify, and hearing no nays.
Aye.
It's accepted. Proposal from the Darren Freshwater Institute, Lake Studies, Analysis, and Summations. Dave, you want to introduce that for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Dr. Jeremy Farrell here today from Darren Freshwater Institute. So everybody knows Darren Freshwater, our RPI Freshwater, has been operating, doing scientific work on Lake George for decades. And they not only do their own work, but they have worked in concert with DEC for many years, with Lake George Association, Fund for Lake George. They're the premier scientific organization on Lake George, and we're happy that Jeremy has been so active in the day-to-day, and he lives pretty much across the street from me, so we interact fairly regularly. And so the idea behind this proposal, and it went out to all commissioners, and I love Jeremy's name of it here. It's called Assemble. Amalgamating scientific studies to ensure management and beauty of the lake environment. So what the idea is, if you read the emails and the proposal certainly, is to take all those decades of study that they've done on Lake George, including whatever they have for DEC work, all of their own work, and provide that in a context that makes sense to you folks and to the non-scientific community, right? Scientists tend to write for a scientific audience, which is fantastic, but we want to have the benefit of all of their knowledge, experience, and all their past studies in a way that's accessible to policymakers and program directors. And they've done fantastic work out there. We're probably aware of, I would say maybe 20% of the amount of work that they've done, but a lot of that ultimately hasn't affected policy or program, right? So as we're developing, the future policies and programs, regulations for Lake George, we always want it to be guided by the best available science. And that science may or may not be out there, but we want to know what that is, right? So Jeremy and I sat down a couple times. His boss, Dr. Kevin Rose, who's in charge of Darren Freshwater Institute. Also, many of you know Sandra Nears-Ricky Bauer, who ran Darren Freshwater for a while. We kind of had a joint conference call, and so this is what the commission is interested in, is putting some resources into you guys, taking the effort, taking all of that scientific work and summarizing it and presenting it in a format that would not be unlike this. I'll pass this around. That's a really good document that the Lake Champlain Basin Program comes out with every year. It's graphically oriented. It's common language as opposed to real deep scientific language. And then we would work on, there's a whole array of scientific study out there. We'd work on the priority sections. I think what you saw in the email was emerging threats, water quality, and invasive species, kind of as a first cut for where we're focusing on. Aaron and I had some conversations about this yesterday. And at the end of the day, they'd be presenting both a document, and Jeremy would be doing a presentation at the end of the year, somewhere in the February-March timeframe, to say, here's a good summarization at general layman's level of what we've worked on Lake George, what we've identified, here's any trends that we've identified, and then ultimately recommendations to say, all right, here's where I think we're weak on research, and should resources come available, perhaps we could all benefit from doing additional work on spiny waterflea Asian clam, whatever it might be, or we're not doing enough work in the streams for water chemistry sampling, or we don't have a good fecocoliform program around Lake George, maybe we need some of that. So what we're asking Darren Freshwater to do, and we solicited this proposal from them, is to do exactly that. And we're going to be working with them on a weekly basis just to make sure that we're not overextending what we're asking them to do, and that they're kind of meeting the test for what we want at the end of the day. But we also think this is a good kind of entree into us working more closely with Darren Freshwater And knowing the fact that they have decades of research and experience on Lake George, we want to have the benefit of that and develop that stronger relationship. So that's kind of a quick summary of this. I asked Jeremy if he'd come today and provide a little bit of his perspective because he knows all this work, and then he can maybe answer any questions that you guys might have. So, Jeremy?
Dave, I don't think they can say it any better than you just did. That's basically all true. The only challenge here will be to synthesize it in a way that's most accessible, and I think with interaction with you and your staff, that would be really helpful to make sure we're really salient in our points. I guess with that, are there questions? I'm happy to address any questions.
Well, it's good that we're going to consolidate all that information that's been collected and faithfully collected and put it into, I think, layman's terms, almost.
That's the hope. So this kind of reminds me of some work that was done in the early 80s by the crowd that was here then, where they had this Lake George symposium and they had all these different people doing this different work, and they synthesized it into one document. Those documents, there were 3 volumes and they were about 120 pages apiece. This will be even smaller, I'm hoping, like really, actually like synthesized in a way that's actually useful.
So the time frame is going to be that we expect?
I think, as I understand the time frame, we'd try to start ramping this up immediately. A semester starts and we'd be working, teaching classes and that stuff. And then a lot of the stuff will go along during the semester, and then during my winter break is when I'd put most of my work into it. Me, and by the way, I'm just one of the co-PIs. There's also Sandra and Kevin and one of our research techs, research specialists, whatever his thing is. He'll be like getting some of the documents together, whatever.
Great.
Yeah.
I just want to say I've worked or talked. I haven't really worked with Jeremy a lot. Talked with him a lot about different issues. This is a great partnership. This is long,
Thanks, Bill.
in my mind, long overdue. We've got this great facility at Darren Freshwater, and we can use it. So it'll be very helpful, I think, to us. This is great.
I think it's really mutual. I think there's growth here. We don't really work in the space of public interaction too well. So now we'll get in there.
Your first job I met you on, you were at the end of my dock,
I was
sweeping
in-
those plastic
Yeah.
mats with the bars on it.
And a
For
pair of
years,
shorts.
I didn't
and-
recognize you unless you're in a bathing suit and a kayak.
Right, yeah. I'd rather be there today. Maybe like after this, I'll go do that.
So just to remember, Jeremy is the one that found using clams on Lake George. He was hanging out at Lake Avenue Beach with his kids, and I think your kid brought you over a clam, was it?
Yeah, we had to like identify this time. I'm like, actually, I don't know.
And if he doesn't know, that's not a good sign, right? So ultimately, it ended up being Asian clam, and then everybody went into overdrive and did our best to try to get rid of it. So, thanks to Jeremy for finding that early. It'd be worse than it was if it wasn't identified earlier.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Moving on. I think,
We need to.
thank you, David. Resolution 2324, proposal acceptance. You want to go ahead and you can read it? Joe, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, Joe's got it.
Resolution 2023-24, proposal Darren Freshwater Institute, Lake Studies, Analysis, and Summarization. Whereas, in its efforts to protect Lake George, the Lake George Park Commission has defined a need to better understand the depth and scientific studies that have been developed over the past several decades on the lake. And whereas RPI's Darren Freshwater Institute has been the leading academic institution studying the Lake George for many decades, and whereas it is in the interest of the Commission to contract with Darren Freshwater Institute to conduct a thorough review of this catalog of studies and summarize the findings and trends related to topics including water quality, ecology, invasive species, and more. And whereas the Commission has met the leadership of Darren Freshwater Institute to discuss this important topic, leading to a proposal for the Commission consideration called Elementary Scientific Studies Ensure Management and Beauty of the Lake Environment for the cost of $48,691. Now therefore be resolved that the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the Darren Freshwater Institute Assembly proposal and authorizes the executive director to take all actions necessary to finalize an agreement for services to work with Darren Freshwater Institute on the project's advancement and completion prior to March 31st of 2024. So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, we'll pass that. Thank you. Next, you're up again, Mr. Stanek, with the project review actions report.
No,
Wow.
you're skipping something.
Skipped one.
Oh my God, I checked
Don't
that
skip
off
Roger.
already. Sorry, I checked your name off.
Way.
But go ahead anyway.
I
Dave loaned me a pen that's a little fast.
asked Michelle to send around a memo yesterday. It was late in the afternoon. I apologize, but we're busy doing inspections and complaints and operational tasks and all that. It's a busy summer as always. But Dave asked that I just need a quick couple minutes and some numbers as to where we're at with the wastewater inspection program. A little refresher. So we started in earnest sometime around the middle of April. I think we brought our inspectors on in March, during March. It was a couple weeks of training. We were doing inspections on or about mid-April, and things had really didn't pick up until May. But as of today, we've completed 103 inspections around the lake. That is it's quite a bit slower than we anticipated, or I think what we were hoping for. Nonetheless, we're getting through them. We have an additional 33 inspections pending. In other words, people have made appointments, and those are from anywhere from tomorrow until about the end of October. Again, so that totals about 136 inspections out of close to 480 that we're hoping to get done this season. Where it's going to end, or how it's all going to shake out, but we need to pick that business up a little bit and get some more people in. Going down that memo, I think the last time we reported our inspection, our passed and failed or substandard rates, we were running around 55%. That's changing a little bit as of yesterday's numbers. 43 septic systems have been determined, so this is out of 103, 43 systems have been determined to be passed, meaning that they meet the minimum standards, and nothing else is required from that property owner other than the annual $50 fee, and those that were inspected this year and passed will be inspected again in 2028. Expanding from the previous report are the incomplete inspections. We have a total of 13 of those right now, or 12% of the total. What we're finding in the field, we're finding a couple of things. One is maybe a miscommunication or misunderstanding by the property owner as to exactly what the inspection entails. We get there often, nothing's dug up, nobody knows where anything is, and we just kind of walk around and look and agree that they need to do some more. So that's, we're hammering when you call and you make an inspection, we fire an email off confirming it, and we add that this is what you need to do: expose the tank, expose the dry well, expose the D-box, things like that. Have your pump truck ready, all that. I was on one last week where we got there and nothing was exposed, and so we mark it down as incomplete and go on. We do follow up with a letter that says, thanks for scheduling the appointment. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it because this, and this needs to be done. And we set usually 30 to 45 days to make that happen. The other category we have is the failed or substandard, and this is the one that is concerning to a lot of people. These are systems that have been determined not to meet those minimum standards and/or need some minor repairs. We don't have a clean breakdown yet of exactly which of those 47 systems, which ones would be considered a complete replacement, which would be the most expensive and the most difficult. Permits, engineers, and so forth will try to improve on that and have that number. Again, in those 47, there are a fair amount that are simple things like tank alarms, risers, access risers, washing machines that need to be directed to the septic system instead of out on the lawn or the bank somewhere, things like that. So that's where we're at with failed and substandard. You just jump back to incomplete. There's quite a bit in that paragraph. result in the fact that you can't find the septic tank, or we can't inspect it. Several that we've been on have been septic tanks that are buried under significant landscape features such as raised beds, blacktop driveways, things like that. We've had 2 or 3 that have outright said, I'm not taking it out. We had one that, after several weeks of saying, oh, yes, you are, came around and did so. We have a couple. We're not getting terribly excited about it yet. It's a new program. It's a new regulatory program. We have plenty of other things to do other than just send a message that this is what it takes to get a complete inspection, an inspection that is required under the commission regulations, and you're due. And just something to watch out for. In one instance, a person said, you're going to make me dig up my whole driveway. And I said, no, you need to cut a 2x2 surgical port, if you will, in that driveway with a steel cover, plastic cover, steel cover of the driveway for inspection. So it's not as grim as it might sound. Make that. The Commissioner Chairman, or the Chairman referenced a failure that we found last week. It was up in the town of Hague, and it was in the course of a person called and scheduled an inspection. Inspector Landry was there performing the flow tests. The sewage was dumping out directly from the sewer main suspended under the building onto the ground. It hit a road in the channel across the lawn and was spilling over the rock ledge. So that was a pretty serious, the first one, I think, actually. So in 100 inspections, 1% direct failure. Inspector Landry handled it well. He went and saw the zoning enforcement officer in Hague, contacted me by phone. I worked with that Fraser town and McGee, and we were able to convince the homeowner. Fortunately, that homeowner had a second home or a second dwelling on the property on a different system. Was able to vacate the property for the took 2 days to get a contractor there, get the piping corrected. And we were there that day, just on the second day to confirm was correct, and now going into the tank. Last paragraph, I touched on briefly. So again, I think we had 483 parcels were in the original notification for the 23 inspections. And again, if you have what we've done and what we're going to do, we're at 136. So being roughly halfway through the season, we're considerably behind. We're going to continue with email blasts to that group of 483. David's working with Tony Hall, and we're going to get some type of an ad in the Lakewood Mirror, hopefully in August for a couple runs, so that people know that this is a requirement, and if you're putting it off, that may result in backups in September, October, and things like that. We could use the business now. We have staff ready, willing, and able. Just got to call us and we'll get it done. We are down one inspector, and our intent is to replace that. The vacancy created by Doug Under in June, he left. We want to fill that because, again, we're anticipating a pretty busy fall season. The chart at the bottom, the pie chart, thank you, Jason, is just kind of the rough numbers of the completed inspections and how it's stacking up. So that's all I got. Okay.
Roger, I have a little concern about in the 4th paragraph here where given that mostly almost 50% of the systems inspected require some type of repair and upgrade, and it's likely that the deadline may need to be extended. Well, geez, you're giving them up to 5 years in 6 months.
Yeah, so Kathy, under the regulations, a failed system, the deadline is 6 months. A substandard system is 5 years. So we kind of split that. And it's always different. A failed system could be simply a steel tank that needs to be replaced. That could happen relatively quickly. Substandard are tank alarms, things like that. Tank alarm is a bad example. Tank alarm is something with a bit more urgency. We think it's important. A riser would be something that we could extend out for 5 years, access riser.
I don't know what that is.
Well, that's when the septic tank or the structure is greater than 12 inches deep. Rather than having to dig and dig and dig, there's a preformed, it's called a riser. It's a structure sitting on top of the tank, and then a plastic cover, so access is quick and easy. All of it kind of promotes maintenance.
Well, I think that also the failed system up in Hague, I mean, that you really got right on it the next day. I mean,
Yeah.
in a couple of days.
Absolutely.
So depending on the severity of the violation, and I mean,
Maybe not well said, but what I was trying to get at too was that I'm hearing from engineers, Tom Hutchins, people who talk, that there's putting a lot of work into the engineering community and the construction community. Tyler Condit is
Right.
tight on the road, and his waiting list is growing.
I know.
So we find these emergency things, and then there's nobody to fix them. Right? We're just backed up. So things like sewage spilling on the ground, that's pretty good evidence to get people motivated. But a riser cover, a tank alarm, those things are going to have to wait until full replacement systems could be 2 or 3 months in engineering and planning and approval before you even engage a contractor. That's 6 months out. So,
yeah, well, we had a failed system, and it was 2 years, but not us, but in our bay, and it's done, but it does take time. I'm aware of that. Now, your memo that you emailed to us, because you just told everything in the meeting, do I have the liberty to forward this to anybody?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, Roger, if you have one property with multiple tanks on it, does that count as one inspection or multiple inspections?
Depends on the system. Internally, I think at our last meeting, we talked about the number of systems to understand what the annual fee would be and then what the inspections would be. Joe, you asked about multiple tanks. It's very common to have a primary tank and secondary tanks. If that goes to a single field, right? Primary,
Right.
you need 3,000 gallons of capacity. You have it 15 and 15, and you have it. So that would be a single system. But we also see properties that have 2 separate distinct systems on them, a tank and field and a tank and field.
Right.
So that would be 2 inspections.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And what about 2 or 3 dwellings that go into one system? Because that's in Cook Bay also.
Yeah, I don't have an answer exactly, Kathy.
Yeah. But when they get inspected, you'll figure that out.
Yeah, we were dealing with one in Putnam that there was,
Yeah.
we found an as-built plan in the county records that indicated that potentially the neighboring property was connected to the tank, and turns out it wasn't, and everything changes every time,
Yeah.
every place you go. So,
You guys are doing a great job.
Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
I'd like to kind of thank Roger for he's really jumped into this and kind of asked him to kind of take the reins of it, and he's out there almost every day doing inspections now as well as administering the program, and that's definitely done with the assistance of Jason, Joe, and our inspectors. The 2 that we have right now are absolutely top shelf, Dave Patton and Seth Landry. So far we're blessed. Our only hesitation right now, the 2 hesitations, one is the engineering and design communities and construction communities' ability to keep up as we find failures. And secondarily, the response rate that we're getting, we're hoping we're going to be a little bit more robust by this stage. But the next letter, as Roger noted, is going out. And when the letters go out in mid-September, it's going to be, okay, you're at the end without you reaching back out to us. We're going to have to start considering other options. So other than that, the program seems to be going fairly well.
It is.
So today is the first day of dock inspections being conducted by our wastewater inspectors. It's slow. I think there was 1 inspection. This is all in anticipation of our annual staff dock inspection. So each year, if we issue 150 dock permits, we try to divvy that up amongst the staff and make sure we get a look at those. Anticipating a very busy wastewater inspection fall, trying to get some of that fall work done now while it's quieter. That way, Joe, myself, and Dave can be out in the field doing wastewater inspections.
Well, it's interesting because everybody should know that, the Park Commission and a lot of the public members, one of them sitting right here, second row, worked for 18 plus months on what I consider to be a very transparent process, and we want to keep that process transparent. And in that single discovery you found in Hague, for my money, pays for the whole program in one day.
Sure does.
I mean, the guy's got septic that's just going under his house.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that it could happen in whatever year this is. So thank you for being the people that started off on the right foot. Any other comments from commissioners for Roger's report? Very good.
Thanks, Raj.
And we'll just be talking about this continually for the rest of whenever. Now, item number 5, project review actions report. Mr. Stanek?
Resolution 2023-25, accept project review actions report. Whereas the commission has received and reviewed the project review actions report prepared by the staff and dated July 18th, 2023, and whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review actions report, now therefore be resolved that the commission directs that the project review actions report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Second. Motion's made, motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify. No nays, so that is passed. Who is handling our projects today?
They are mine this month, so I can start.
It's yours.
Thank you. Okay. So our first project would be the No Shoes Cruises. It's a new tour boat operation owned by Richard Scanlon. So this is a sightseeing tour boat operation proposed to be operating out of Surfside on the Lake, which is a resort in Lake George Village, and the Class A Marina. The operation proposes 2 to 3 trips per day with a maximum of 14 passengers. This single boat operation is replacing another operation, Sunset Boat Charters, which was 2 boats, maximum 5 trips a day, 10 passengers each. This is a net reduction in the total impact on the lake. At this time, there is still one more vacancy for a tour boat after this, if it were approved, that would be considered in the future. I provided some secret analysis on traffic impacts and boat congestion impacts for your viewing. This is in the village, which is busy, but the owner and operator has proposed sightseeing outside the village and in areas south of the Narrows that are not over capacity in the 2015 recreational study. There's been no negative comment from any neighbor. It was approved by the Lake George Village pending our approval, and with the condition that it operates between the hours of 10 a.m. and sunset. At this time, the applicant has submitted everything that we would need. We are just pending commission approval to issue the permit. So Mr. Scanlon is out of the country right now, but he said he would send along an agent to speak about it. Is anyone here for Mr. Scanlon and then Stephen?
Yes, I'm Rodney Powis. I was drafted by Mr. Scanlon to appear. I'm a friend of his, and I read the report. I concur with everything. Additionally, I'll just give you a little information about Mr. Scanlon, his bio, his pedigree. He's lived up in Lake George for 30 years. He's a retired, he's either owned property or vacation homes up here. He's a retired lieutenant firefighter. He's an EMT. He's a public insurance adjuster. He's just the kind of guy you want operating a tour boat with, multiple people on it. Has all the necessary experience for safety. He's a great steward of the lake and our community. And this, as the gentleman indicated, this is a change of a license. It was already issued to this hotel in 2019 for tour boat operation, and this is actually a decreased use. So, we recommend the commission approve this for Mr. Scanlon, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? The applicant's agent? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody here have any comments, pro or con? Want to be heard? Hearing none, do we have a resolution?
Yep. Resolution 2023-26, approve operation of a tour boat. Application number is TB 23 5 zeros and a 5. Applicant is Richard Scanlon, North Shores Cruises. Whereas the applicant has applied for permit to operate a tour boat from Surfside on the lake, offering sightseeing services from one vessel and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment. And whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed as required, and the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the standards for tour boats at 6 NY CRR 646-1.4D. And whereas the Commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, and will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the above applications as proposed. So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor signify.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it's adopted. Harris Bay.
So this is an application for a new dock at a vacant lot, and it's brought forth by the Serenes, Michael and Sharon, who are here today in the audience. So the subject parcel is a vacant lot located off Cleverdale Road in the southeast portion of Harris Bay. The parcel has 56 feet of lakefront. 45 feet is required for a straight pier. The application is requesting a variance due to our requirements of setbacks, of 20-foot setbacks, as they are extended at a right angle to the high water mark of the shoreline. So I have provided our setback analysis and the proposed plans of this 6-foot by 40-foot dock for your viewing. And the Serenes have provided a financial hardship letter noting how much their property would be worth without this dock and the request for this variance. And their application materials are in there. I can speak more about the technical and position of the dock and what they're proposing, but I can also leave it to Serene to speak a little bit more about the specific project and why they propose it. Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, good morning. When we were purchasing this lot, we had asked a lot of questions. Was there a dock there? They told us yes. For some reason, the woman that we bought it for was like 90-some years old. The dock was destroyed, and she didn't have the ability to put a new dock. Right in front of our, where the water starts, it's very shallow and a lot of rock. So us to get access to get into the water, we have to go out a little bit. So that's the main reason we want a dock. And of course, we have a boat. We want to be able, to have a lot on Lake George and not be able to access the water or have a boat is heart-wrenching. It is a great loss to us, value-wise, monetary, because we paid a lot of money for the lot, and to think that when we got this letter from the realtor saying that we would lose $350,000 right up front. We love the lake. We want to use it. We worked really hard for this property, and I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not a public speaker, so this is where I go. We originally, when we were talking to Jason, we wanted 8-foot wide. We agreed, okay, we'll go down to a 6-foot wide. It is 50 feet lot. We're going with a 6-foot wide dock. We would have 22 feet on each side. It's about 50 feet farther away from each side of our neighboring properties. That's how far the distance is. So there's a lot of, water in between us. Our engineer we hired did the original calculations for us, and from what they said, we did meet. We met the setbacks, we met that radius thing. They read it differently than Jason reads it. I don't know why. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here to speak for or again or detail? Would you step up to the mic, please, sir? And
Yeah, my name is Ray Kraft. My family originally owned the property. The woman that Serene's bought it was my cousin. My grandfather bought the original property in 1916. Before him, there was a launch property there. There was rails. They used to launch mid-sized boats off that piece of property. If you come down Private Road 1 and you look to the right, there's an old metal launch boat there. There was docks before me. I'm 72 years old. And there was a dock there back in the 60s that they used to go over there and just sit and swim off of, but like they said, it deteriorated. It's hard to believe that the issue is such on a piece of property like that they tax the snot out of you and then tell you can't swim off a dock. But if you go out there and take a look at the piece of property, and if you go down Private Road 1 and you look to the right, you can see the boat that's been there as long as I've been alive. And that boat was launched off of those rails that were, maybe 3 feet off the north side of that lot. And they used to go down to the water. There used to be a shed there, looked like an outhouse, that housed the mechanicals that ran the boats up and down those rails that looked like railroad tracks. And there was some kind of a marina there. I could have researched this if I known more about this meeting before last night. I don't know if Mr. Mason remembers any of it, but we've all been up there that long. But it had, I don't know if it was more back before me, had more docks than one, but I remember the one small one down there. Thank you.
thank you. Anything can happen in Cleverdale, right? I mean, historically.
My neighborhood.
Historically. All been there. Anyone else have any comments they'd like? Any commissioners have any comments they'd like to make?
We visited the site and determined that it was a good site for the dock and with the 6-foot width. But we also suggested that, and will be one of the conditions is that to be residential use only with no association use or Class A or Class B marina. That would be the conditions associated with it. And it should be kind of like a state dock because of some of the vegetation around the water nearby.
So your visiting crew didn't see any other issues there?
No, Bill, you were there.
I was there. I'm not. What was your question? I'm sorry.
There were no other issues?
No,
Conflict?
in the thing that I would point out, the positive that I looked at, it actually meets the setback requirements except for the one that's perpendicular to the shoreline. But all of the other docks in the neighborhood, the ones north and south, and many of them are built in the same exact, they're parallel to this. So it really follows, is from my opinion, it follows not necessarily the letter of our setback requirement, but certainly the spirit of it. There's plenty of room for this 6-foot wide dock in that lot.
I'm mostly surprised that there was a vacant lot on Lake George. Where was I all this time? Anyways, okay. Do we have
Could I
Sure.
ask the applicant a question, Sharon? There were a couple of really tall pine trees that had some kind of markings on them. Are you planning to take those down? I'm just curious.
No, we already have our site plan review approved by the town, and we were allowed to take down some trees just to be able to put a house. In that plan, we have to, it's called zero removal. So for every tree that we took down, we have to replace. We also have to put in 70 more plantings on that lot as part of our site plan. So it's going to be hopefully we'll be able to see the lake with all the plantings.
And the wood chips seem to be working, holding back the erosion in the water, because we certainly had a lot of rain this season.
We did have a lot. We had a nervous little dilemma there, but we corrected it, and it worked fine. And we also have our plant, it's where the water can't go through, the barriers. Yes, so we have all that down. So yeah, we're on it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Joe?
With respect to the perpendicular lines, I just want to point out Jason's analysis follows our staff procedures that have been accepted by the commission and are right in our instructions. Your agent did depict them wrong, and Jason's work is consistent with that policy, so you can feel good about that.
And we get another new approved septic system on the lake right away. Do we have a resolution?
Yes, resolution 2023-27. Application number is DWM 234056, dock modification. Applicant is Sharon Serini. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to lengthen an existing dock, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the Commission has made a determination that the project is a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NY CRR 617.5. No further review is required for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And whereas the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed in accordance with the Commission regulation. And whereas the applicant has requested a variance from 6 NY CRR 646-1.1-11, every dock or wharf constructed shall have a minimum setback of 20 feet from the adjacent property line extended into the lake on the same axis as the property line runs on shore where it meets the lake, or at a right angle to the main high water mark, whichever results in a greater setback. Whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. The Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application with the following conditions. One, it's for residential use only with no association use or Class A or Class B marinas, and it would be a stake dock. So moved.
Motion made. Seconded?
Second.
Motion's made, seconded. Any further discussion?
Just for clarity, would you be comfortable with a stake or pile-driven dock, which is also
Pile,
common?
yes.
Okay, just no crib.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. We're all set? All in favor, signify.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it's carried. Good luck with your new project. See? That wasn't difficult, was it? Come practice your public speaking anytime you want. Third project is a variance for sun deck construction in a setback on a single pier at Echo Bay.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application was put forth by the Vasquez family, who are co-owners of 3554 Echo Bay Lane in Fort Ann. Subject parcel is on the north side of Echo Bay Lane in the town of Fort Ann. It's got a total of 35 feet of lakefront. It is improved with a 48-foot long by 5-foot wide straight pier. Again, as referred to last project, 45 feet is required for a straight pier per our regulations. So this one is an existing non-conforming structure that was registered in 1981 in its current state. The applicant has proposed construction of a 22-foot by 15-foot by 11-foot high sun deck over this straight pier, as close to shore as possible, built along shore. This would conflict with our setback standards, as we just discussed, being that the property is 35 feet, 20 feet of setback on either side. The entire property is within setback. So therefore, it would require a variance from the same regulation we were just discussing. However, this one is construction in the setback and a vertical level further exacerbating area in a setback. So I can speak more about the plans or the analysis or anything else that we provided in the packet, and I've invited Mr. Vaskovich and family to come and speak any more about their proposal. So I'll let you.
Thank you. Good morning. Right, so we own this dock, and the other two homes have lake access rights to the dock. And what happens during the summertime, we get about 20 people at the dock. My family alone is 30 people, so it makes it extremely unsafe to park the boat and to dock the boat and be on the dock. We had family members falling off the dock and falling off the boat while docking the boat. So I'm proposing to make this property safe for all of the participants to enjoy it safely. Both neighbors on both sides of the dock agreed to the structure, and I have that in the email for Jason. The other thing is that in terms of aesthetically, it will fit right in, because I think we're the last dock on the lake in the bay without sun deck. Everyone else has a sun deck there. The sun deck actually has a precedence. There's one at Lake Mattel, 380 Canada Street. So they have a sun deck over a single pier dock. APA came out and they confirmed that there's no variance required against their regulations. And as I said, I have the support of neighbors on both sides. I also have support of the properties that have lake access rights, and Christopher Hickey here in the audience as well, showing his support. So that's, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I just want to point something out. In receiving this application, because it seemed to benefit the co-owners, we did not send public notice to the co-owners. It was our assumption that they're in support. I learned on Friday that the co-owners may not have been engaged by Mr. Vaskovich early, and we didn't send them public notice. I guess Mr. Hickey is with us here today, so if you're inclined to approve, it may be worthwhile to table it so we can give them the 15 days. I just provided them the application on Friday, so they really haven't had a lot of time to look at it and how it might impact their rights. So it might be appropriate to table it. If you're not in favor of it, then denying it obviously wouldn't impact their rights. But I'm not sure if Mr. Hickey plans to talk today, but sorry, I interrupted the question.
No, you didn't at all, and that's important information.
Thank you.
You have something to say, sir?
Yeah, I'm glad to speak. My name is Chris Hickey. I live at 3804 Isom Bay Way. As Andre said, I have lake rights to the same dock and waterfront. And I did get the proposal late. Thanks to Tom, I heard about this when he got the agenda, and I have had the chance to read through it. I think Joe is correct in the fact that I think it would benefit us as lake right individuals, and make it safer for obviously us to get in and out of kayaks, with folks on an extended platform rather than being on the dock. As long as it doesn't affect, I don't object as long as it doesn't affect our access to the lake. In reading it, I'm not an architect or an engineer, but in reading it and the way I read it, it doesn't look like it impacts our ability to access the lake. I do have a pump house that sits, I think it's in the proposal, it's identified in the proposal. That's actually my pump house that sits on the property, but I don't think that's impacted either by this structure being constructed. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Anybody else for comments on this project?
Any indication from the other co-owner? Is it Sawsville family?
Yeah, I spoke with Dick and forwarded him the proposal as well on Friday. So he has had the opportunity to review the proposal. He couldn't make it this morning. He was going to come as well, but couldn't make it this morning. And he didn't indicate to me any objection.
Nor did he give you any privileges of offering an endorsement either.
He did not.
Just one person.
Did we have a visitation?
Yes, we
Yes.
visited the site.
How did we do there?
I think that this is a difficult for me to approve because there's very little financial benefits associated with this application. And also in the past, I think we've always kind of restricted a single dock with this limitations in the setback to only building something that's the same size of the footprint of the dock. And this would certainly exacerbate the length of into the setback. So I'm kind of not in favor of approving this at this point.
Who else was there? Kath?
Yes, I was there. It's a very small shoreline for, you're probably lucky to have that nice dock that you have. Yeah, I agree with Joe. My question is, if you have two other owners and they didn't know who was planning, and I know it's probably none of my business, but this was major construction and expensive. Were you just going to foot the whole bill?
Yeah.
I mean,
so well, the other owners have a deed to lake access, right? But we own the dock. I pay property tax on the dock. I already fixed the dock this year. It had to be redone because it was deteriorating. So yes, I wouldn't even attempt to ask Chris or Richard for.
Okay, because they were saying that they were owners, but they just have lake access. Right.
We just
I
have
wanted to
deeded
clarify
lake.
that.
Correct. We do not, and the use of the term co-owner, I think, is inappropriate. I think we have deeded lake rights to that property.
But the owner has all the maintenance and the responsibility, the liability for insurance purposes and taxes and all of that. Interesting. Okay, well, that's good to clarify that. No, this is a very non-conforming structure. I would not be in favor of it.
Bill, you were there.
I was there as well, and I think I concur with Kathy and Joe. We would be increasing the encroachment in the setback, and this is a very tight lot. So it's significant that what we would be granting, and I would not be in favor of it.
Kathy, you were
I
there.
also attended. I agree with what has been said.
Okay. Do we have a resolution?
Yep. Resolution 2023-28. Application number DWM 235005, dock modification. Applicant is Gerard Vaskovich. Whereas the applicant has proposed to construct a 22 by 15 open-sided sun deck over an existing pier, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. The Commission has made a determination that the project is a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CR 617.5. And no further review is required for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And whereas the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed in accordance with the Commission regulation. And whereas the applicant has requested a variance from 6 NY CRR 646-1.1, number 11, every dock or wharf constructed shall have a minimum setback of 20 feet from the adjacent property line extended into the lake on the same axis as the property line runs on shore where it meets the lake, or at a right angle to the mean high water mark, whichever results in the greater setback. Whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the project, will not alter the essential character of the area which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park and will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Motion's made to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second to the motion, I can't act on the motion.
Should I second it? I'm looking at attorney. You
Well,
want this second?
here's what
Yes.
here's
And then
my
we can
plan.
vote against it.
My plan is
I'll
to...
second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. I'm going to have a roll call vote. If I have Michelle's eye down there, the last time I surprised her, I know that.
No.
No. No.
No.
No.
No.
And my vote is no. So it's not carried. I guess you have to go to Plan B if there is one. I don't know, but that's right. Thank you for being here today. Law Enforcement Committee report by Vice Chair, Mr. Floyd.
The Law Enforcement Committee met this morning. We've had some problems with our fuel supply. We've got water in our tanks at Green Island, and this is causing problems for our boats. And right now we have 2 boats that are not operable because of this fuel supply. We're trying to rectify that situation, and we're going to try to repair the tank that's there and totally clean it out and get better fuel in the future. Our boater education classes we had on July 10th and 11th, and we have not scheduled any new ones until there is a demand for more classes. And I want to remind people that come 2025, anybody operating a boat on Lake George must have a license. So time's starting to run out on people. In the last 8 days, we have had 2 BWIs and 1 accident late at night. So far this year, we've issued 91 tickets, which is about on par to our annual number of tickets. We went into executive session and then discussed some of our enforcement actions, discussed cases new and some of the ones that just closed. And we left executive session and we returned back to our normal session and adjourned. And I have a motion to read. Resolution 2023-29. Whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met on July 25th, 2023 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and Commission's law enforcement program. And whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session. And whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting. And whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report. Therefore, now be it resolved that the Commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee. I so move.
Second. Motion's made, motion seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I'd like to make a couple comments, not to add to that, but one, the gas problem, just for the folks that were here, so you can spread the rumors. The gas problem was not ours, it was DEC found it in the tank. And 2, our Marine Patrol actually chased and apprehended a bad guy, who turned out to be a real bad guy, 2 streets up in Bolton Landing. So we're just not chasing him by a boat, and if we don't catch him, turning around and going for lunch in the shade. We drop our boat and draw our guns and go get them. And I think they should be commended for that, because that ain't fun. And we're going to have to add physical endurance to our new employment contracts. You can't run out of breath after the first 100 yards like I would. I wouldn't even make it to the end of the deck. Okay, how about some public comments? Do we have anybody here that hasn't had a chance to speak or wants to rescind something they said earlier? Add something? Then I have no other options left except to ask for something.
I'll motion
is
adjourn.
made.
Second.
All in favor? We did it. We're done. Thank you. Till next month.